Christian nationalism is just the latest iteration of white supremacy. So it's specifically white Christian nationalism. And I'm not saying that to leave Black people out of it,
Right.
because you have a lot of white Christian nationalists in blackface who are practicing the same behaviors and hold the same ideologies. Because some people think, you know, you can't be a white supremacist if you Black. White supremacy starts with a belief.
Absolutely.
If you believe that white is right and superior, that is white supremacy, and you are a white supremacist. And I know a lot of Black white supremacists.
Absolutely. What's going on, everybody? I am Donovan, and welcome to Stranger Fruit. We have a very, very, very special guest today. Please help me in introducing Kristian A. Smith, founder and pastor of the faith community and host of Holy Smokes, Cigars and Spirituality. Yo, I've just wanted to talk to you for such a long time.
I'm glad we got a chance.
I knew we were going to talk.
Yeah.
And my producer, Donnie, when you were like, you were going to be in town, she was like, I don't care what we have to do. We are going to talk to him. And she booked the studio.
Wow.
And we just figured everything else out. So I'm so honored to have you here. I feel like I know you, but I don't know you. And I know that like you can create these parasocial relationships online. But the things that you talk about as a young person growing up in church, I describe it as having a little gay boy like in the bottom of your gym bag as you sort of like perform masculinity, and church being a main stage in that performance journey, right? Like just hoping that no one clocks you, just hoping that you don't sing too softly, too high, you don't flip the wrist, you don't do whatever it is. But I imagine that it would have been a different experience if I had gone to your church. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, at this stage, not if you were growing up in the same church that I grew up in. It was,
that part.
It was still very much don't ask, don't tell growing up. Like we probably had similar upbringings.
Yeah. What kind of church? What's your denomination if you had one?
So I was raised National Baptist, but I'm going to put a disclaimer on that, right? Because my father was very disruptive considering his faith traditional origin. Now, when it came to same gender attraction, he was still very much conservative in his view, but he wasn't antagonistic. He was just more like accepting, but I still want to get you saved.
Got you.
Type thing.
Got you.
So he wasn't preaching like messages to bash queer people from the pulpit. I tell people all the time, I grew up in Oakland, California. My church was on MLK right across the street from the corner where the trans sex workers worked.
Oh, okay.
And I remember being a kid walking across the street with my dad to discover he had a relationship with the trans sex workers. They knew him as pastor.
Okay.
Like, and they loved him and he loved them. So I saw it modeled how to interact with people who were different or who society had cast out, even though my theology was still very much homophobic internally. It just wasn't outwardly antagonistic, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that does make sense. And it's like what you said before. There's this undercurrent of acceptance, right? Because that's my job. The Bible says, right? And like there are these things like if you're looking for kindness, if you're looking for acceptance, the church should be that place.
Should be.
You know, I think for a lot of us who like grew up in the church and when that brimstone, when it was Brimstone Sunday, like you knew they were coming for you on that day. It's like I even knew today is going to be a gay day. Like I just feel it.
Yikes.
I just feel it. And my heart just used to pound. It just used to pound. It's like it was yesterday. I can just imagine that, like, you know, and very Jamaican Pentecostal right here, by the way.
Got you.
Yeah. Jesus, I go come and destroy the LGBT. Like, yeah, they would go in.
Yikes.
And what I walked away from, more because I always knew I could sing. I never really sang in that church. Because I did when I was really young and just like didn't have any autonomy, no agency at all. It's like, get up, we're going to church, right? But after a while, as soon as I could, I stopped going. And I discovered so much of God outside of the church.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because in that church, I didn't know what that was. First of all, no shade to the church, but the music wasn't popping. You know, like
that matters.
It does.
That matters.
There was like nothing to look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
There is no consolation prize, like nothing. And so as soon as I could leave, like I distinctly remember with like meeting my best friend or meeting certain people or just like even being outside on the right day, just the warmth of the sun. And I always say like, I know that God is real. And I always experience God through miracles, through sort of like, close call on this, close call on that,
Mm-hmm.
but also just feeling like an embrace of sorts. And I would say like during my childhood, it was very much about separating from that, what I knew to be true, through what I heard, through what I saw in church.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just such a journey in recovering some of that innocence and some of that belief that God is internal. Like I there's something that lets me know that without the pastor telling me that I have access to God. And so for you, like because you grew up in a religious background, having a father who's a pastor, how was it for you to sort of like go down this journey of like discovering God for yourself versus what you grew up with?
Oh yeah, I can definitely expound on that.
Yeah.
And first, something you said just reminded me of one of the words of my late mentor, Bishop Carlton Pearson, when he was asked in an interview, is Carlton Pearson saved? That was the question presented to him after he had, introduced the gospel of inclusion, where he basically
Ooh,
told
okay.
people nobody's going to hell.
Okay.
If you've never heard of the Carlton Pearson story, check out a film called Come Sunday. It'll give you
Okay.
some of the background, American Pentecostalism, that
Oh,
whole
I'll
nine.
definitely check it out.
Yeah, Come Sunday. It was a Netflix film.
Okay.
And he was asked, was Carlton Pearson saved? And he said, yeah, Carlton Pearson has been saved for a long time, but I didn't feel safe.
That part. Wow.
And that is a testimony of a lot of people that I work with who come out of church who are like, yeah, I felt saved. I felt like, there was a connection to God, but I didn't feel safe in the church.
Yeah.
I felt like my humanity could come under attack on any given Sunday.
Absolutely.
To the point where I felt it in my body, because the body keeps the score.
Yeah.
So that's so true that a lot of people have that experience, which is why we're in the position that we're in today as a people.
Yeah.
My journey of evolution really started in seminary because everybody comes to their evolution in different ways. There are these different starting points that people have. And when I acknowledged the call to preach, because in my tradition, that's what we called it, a call, that you don't choose the ministry chooses you. And I genuinely felt that. And my dad told me out the gate, a call to preach is a call to prepare. So if you're going to be serious about preaching, you need to be educated. You need to go to school. You need to learn what you're talking about.
Amen.
So I took that to heart. I went to seminary, and my journey really started on day one when my perspective of biblical authority was challenged. One of my professors at orientation with all the new students, we weren't even in a class yet.
My God. Okay.
She was like, I'm gonna just like let y'all know out the gate that the Bible is not the word of God. And I said, oh, okay, well then let's see where this goes, right? And she said the Bible is a word of God, but the word of God cannot be limited to the Bible or contained by the Bible. And that really started this journey of exploration, which was somewhat troubling, but not as deeply as it is for other people. Because I grew up in a well-rounded home, like definitely a church kid, but I had a life outside of church too. And my dad is what Pentecostals would consider worldly anyway.
No. Oh God. Okay.
According to Pentecostals, Baptists ain't really saved.
It's true. It's like you go to the movies.
Yeah.
What? You got an earring on? Like they're very extra. Understood.
Exactly. But we were really, really heavy on biblical authority. So like whatever the Bible says, we not questioning that. We not pushing back. You got to align yourself with whatever this Bible says. And in seminary, I was given permission to think critically about that. And that's all I needed was permission, because I was raised to be a critical thinker, but my parents never invited me or gave me permission to think critically about my theology. My theology is just something I was supposed to accept and embrace.
Right.
Don't wrestle with it. Don't push back. Don't ask questions. Just look, it is what it is. And then you build on top of that.
Right.
So my journey really started as me starting to question some of my basic assumptions that my faith traditional origin never gave me the permission to question.
I love that. And I think a lot of same gender loving and queer people, trans folks could identify with is like, I didn't feel like I had a choice with that part.
Yeah.
Because my very existence was in such conflict with what I was hearing. I was like, this is bullshit. Like at the end of the day, like my lived experience is so vastly different.
Yeah.
There's a book called The Velvet Rage, which expounds on this. And it talks about when you're a gay person, Black folks can relate to this too, is that you do everything in your power to be palpable, to be affable, to be approachable, to seem very, very sort of like innocent and ready for the world to sort of like treat you like anybody else, AKA white folks, right? For Black people, or like straight folks, for queer people, in that if I look great, if I perform well, if I get all of these degrees, if I make some money, then maybe being gay won't matter so much. And so I began to understand that a negotiation was happening at a very, very young age.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so in realizing, like, by the time I was like 14, 15, I was like, I don't really fucking want to negotiate anymore. I just want to be myself. And so finding moments to like be honest and tell somebody, that saved me. Just the opportunity to just let my best friend know, and then let my sister know, and then let another friend know, and then let the guys know. It was through that I discovered more and more of God. It is through that personal development. It is through the questioning. And who was that? I think it's Dr. Beckwith or Iyanla, somebody who talks about this idea that if you ask big questions, big answers will follow. But you have to be curious. You have to ask those questions.
What I teach is you want to ask an empowering question. And most people, when they're going through something that's debilitating, they'll ask a disempowering question. They'll ask from a victim state. Why me? Who's to blame? What's wrong? And the mind will just go rampant with those kind of questions, but they don't take you anywhere. They take you on a downward spiral, or you will end up mining the database of human consciousness of all of the negativity that's ever happened on the planet. You know, why me? What's wrong? Who's to blame? You'll just pull in all the frequency of all the suffering that's happening on the planet. So you have to ask an empowering question, a question such as, what good is present that I cannot see right now? What's seeking to emerge in my life right now? What gift is being born in me right now? What talent is being honed? What power is being cultivated? What's trying to unfold?
And so that's what I did. I didn't plan on it. I just asked this question. I was like, yo, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to be here? Everybody's always telling you something contrary. And thus, I think a lot of people begin this journey of reconciling what they learn in church versus who it is that God is in your life. Because again, like you said, God can't be contained.
Yeah.
How was it with your dad, by the way, once you started questioning?
My dad he passed before I had a chance to.
Okay.
So
gotcha.
It would have been very interesting if he was alive. We'd have had some very lively conversations, and I believe he would have been proud of me. Yeah. And my mom believes the same.
Yeah.
I do what I do in his honor. And for people who say, oh, your dad will be disappointed, they obviously didn't know him as well as they think they do. Because he was the type of guy where like everybody thought they were his best friend.
Understood.
And a lot of them didn't really know him and didn't know like where he was coming from. You just said something that really resonated with me about how your journey started with you like really feeling like you could ask some of the big questions.
Yeah.
And to me, what that sounds like is like your journey started with you really connecting with the God in you.
Yes.
The God in your gut, which pushes back against fundamentalist Christianity, which is built around really rigid rules and standards that you are supposed to follow step by step. Don't question it, don't ask. And then the doctrine also tells you that your mind is wicked and your heart is deceitful and your righteousness is a filthy rag. So you shouldn't trust yourself. Don't lean unto your own understanding, but in all of thy ways acknowledge him. These are these verses and scriptures that get reinforced all the time. Absolutely. So it's this repetition, which is why whenever I bring up those verses, people who grew up in church are like, oh yeah, I know that one. But in a book so large, why are these verses the ones that we know? Because they were repeated the most.
Absolutely.
And that's how you either educate or indoctrinate. Repetition.
Yes.
So if we're constantly being told your mind is wicked, your heart is deceitful, your righteousness is a filthy rag, don't lean unto your own understanding, you learn at a very young age not to trust yourself.
Absolutely.
And then you start policing yourself in ways that you don't even need an outside source to police you anymore because you've been conditioned to police yourself. So when you feel those questions well up internally, you stop yourself. Oh, I can't do that because God gonna be mad at me. But that's God.
Yeah.
That's God in there. And a lot of people have not had the opportunity to really explore the God on the inside of them because there are so many external voices that have been set in place to really diminish that.
Absolutely.
And I think it's so powerful for you to bring that up because that's the journey. Some people leave the church and they talk about, I left the church and I found God outside of the church. Also a part of that, you found yourself.
Facts.
You gotta find yourself in the midst of all of that. Because if you leave the church and never find yourself and just find another version of religion, you'll just repeat the same cycles because you're disconnected to yourself wherever you go.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that so much. I mean, I felt like I grew exponentially outside of church.
Yeah.
And I went on this journey. My friends and I, my partner at the time, we would just go on church tours. We gotta find some place that It took years. And finally we found FCBC, First Corinthian Baptist Church in Harlem. Pastor Mike.
Yeah.
I can't speak enough or speak highly enough of him rather, because I don't know him. I would never say that I know him like really super personally. Like Pastor Mike and I are not going out to lunch. Yeah,
right, got you.
But
we'll speak it into the atmosphere.
I would love to, and I also would love to be able to have conversations with him. But he did have something called coffee and conversations at the church. I remember like it was yesterday. He was like, "Come Saturday morning. If you want to, we're gonna have coffee. We're gonna have some refreshments at the top of the church, and you can ask me whatever you want. We're just gonna talk." So I go. My friends and I go, actually. Just 3 gay boys, just like sit in the front too. Just we have questions. Yeah. We have some questions. And so the first thing, I didn't ask this to him. They took our questions, you wrote it down, and they took it, and he kind of like went through it. And I sure enough asked him, I said, what is your position on the queer community and in relation to your church? And he told this story of how he was he was in college, had his first child with his now wife, Pastor Lakeisha, and he was working someplace. I forget if it was like a hotel or some kind of like hospitality, whatever. And there was a coworker that he had. The coworker is gay. And one day Pastor Mike like snapped on him or something like that. And the coworker said to him like, yo, listen, you are the one who has like a baby out of wedlock. You are the one who's supposed to be a pastor, and you're so mean.
Yeesh.
And like unkind. And I just don't know what I don't know what I did to you, bro. And like he told him how he felt, and Pastor said that day he like wept.
Wow.
And felt like super convicted about that.
Yeah.
And it changed him. And it also encouraged him to deepen his understanding of the work and the word and unpacking the Leviticus that everybody gonna wrap around and throw at you real fast, and unpack these scriptures, understanding the Hebrew translation, getting to some Greek translations, and understanding that things aren't always what they seem, and how can we further educate ourselves. And through his sort of like approach to the word, right, being inquisitive, saying like, oh, so y'all really think that Mary just got pregnant, like, you know, just whoop, there it is that okay, cool, let's talk about that. And I went back to church. We went back to church. I've been going there ever since. And I didn't know I was going to find a place. But when I see someone like Queen Jean, who's a proud trans woman, at the front with the church hat all the way, you got to say, excuse me, Queen, I need to be able to see. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's such a sense of pride to be able to go to a place where it's truly welcoming, and that I could go from this scared gay boy in the Pentecostal church to being in a place where I feel extremely embraced and being able to invite people there. And then in between that was a whole bunch of shenanigans, right?
I'm sure.
Being called out, like, come, let's pray for you. That looks like a gay circle right there. Come up and let's pray.
Gay circle.
literally have experienced, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but they called us up to pray for us and then try to pray the gay out. That really happened. And that's the trauma. Like, I cannot over express the trauma. So that discovery process, but there's nothing like quite coming back around and then still feeling like you can fellowship and being embraced. And I know that everybody doesn't have that opportunity because of maybe where they are. We're in New York. You know, this is in Harlem. It's a different type of an experience. And I would just hope that everybody, anyone who feels antagonized by the church, would do their due diligence and explore and question, because you may find your liberation and you may find a closer connection to God through that process, as opposed to the shackles, right? Like, that sometimes these certain religious institutions will have you in.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I believe that the story about Pastor Mike is so appropriate.
Yeah.
Because it supports the statement that I've made, that in my experience, no one becomes more inclusive by hearing the Bible explained or interpreted differently.
Yeah.
If you're not looking for inclusion in the Bible, you won't find it, because you find in the Bible what you're looking for.
Absolutely.
And like with Pastor Mike, his journey towards inclusion didn't start with reading the Bible. It started with an interaction with somebody. Absolutely. A relationship with somebody that challenged him and caused him to weep. Mm-hmm. And then on the other side of that weeping, he had a different perspective with which he approached the Bible. Mm-hmm. The words of the Bible didn't change. The way he read is what changes.
Yes.
So that is a constant refrain, even with me, right? Like, my journey towards inclusion didn't start with reading the Bible differently. My perspective on biblical authority changed before my stance on inclusion changed. I was in seminary, and, you know, I'm a friendly guy. I try to be easy to get along with. And, you know, my classmates took notice of that. And I think they just assumed, because I'm so friendly, that I'm inclusive. And then one day in class, my homophobia slipped out. You know? I just kind of said, oh, yeah, well, you know, that's wrong. And they looked at me like, what? Yeah, like, wait a minute, Kristian, what do you mean? I was looking like, why are y'all looking at me like that? I thought we all agreed. Because it was something that we hadn't talked about yet. Exactly. So I just assumed. I came up in a don't ask, don't tell. So the fact that we weren't openly talking about it here just fell in line with what I was raised in. Yeah. So when I said it out loud, they were like, whoa, wait a minute. And they were like, so are you saying that, like, gay people shouldn't have rights? And I was like, no, not at all. Okay. Like, I just, isn't it wrong? But wow, that challenged me. And what I did in response to that, because I was already wrestling with the authority of the Bible, what that means to me. So what I did was I went internally. I got introspective, because I was trained to believe that sexuality was a choice. And I put that to the test by applying it to myself. Yeah. And I asked myself, I had a conversation with myself. I said, Kristian, did you choose your sexuality? Can you name the moment or the time in which you made a decision? And it's like, no, I didn't make a decision. I made a discovery. Sexuality is a discovery. You discover who you are. You don't choose your orientation. And
Thank
that,
you, sir.
yeah, and that opened up
Thank you.
everything for me.
Yeah.
That opened up everything. And some people are like, yeah, it is a choice. It is a choice. And if you're saying that speaking from personal experience, then you by definition are bisexual.
Yes.
And you are suppressing that aspect of your humanity because you don't truly love all that you are.
Absolutely.
And then you're projecting that self-loathing onto the world.
Absolutely. Hey, y'all heard that? And it's so easy, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
Let me tell you something about privilege. It's a blinder.
Absolutely.
It will fuck your shit up because that privilege will have you in the center of the universe. So much so that even applying your experience to certain people, you can't do that, which is by definition how you channel empathy. Being able to put yourself in other people's shoes, sort of like understanding how you feel about something so you can understand why you would feel that way. But queer folks, women, black people, some people, they stop right short of what can it feel like for me to apply the way that I feel to them or the way that they feel into my personal experience. And it's just so annoying because to a lot of us, that's really fucking clear. And I've had that conversation, and I think it's different. Sometimes you have to hear this from the pastor. Sometimes you have to hear this from a straight cis person to say like, yo, just think about your own journey.
Yeah.
Because I've literally said this like in a conversation with people. I was like, well, how do you all feel to be bisexual people choosing just one? Tell me about that, because I don't know what that's like. I wish if I had that experience of being able to choose. I was out here plotting and planning. I was like, maybe I could get together with a lesbian. You do your thing, girl. I'm going to do my thing. We going to figure out how we get a turkey base or something to have a baby. I was making plans. You understand what I'm saying?
Marriage,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I was making these plans because for me, there was no choice, bro. And so when I think about that, this road of empathy, it's really what's missing. And I think, and you brought this up about like the foundational aspect. The foundation, gay is wrong.
Yeah.
Just easy breezy. We already know that. You don't fornicate, which everyone does, or at least they think that they do. Pastor Mike says fornication is not what people think it is, by the way. But like different things that you just know you're not supposed to do. As everybody gets their marriage annulled and gets their divorce and eats shellfish and wear their wool blends, people pick and choose. But I want to get into sort of like the weaponization of this foundation that you were speaking about.
Yeah.
And we're going to wrap back around to black folks, but I want to look at the broader Christian society, this Christian nationalism aspect of it, because the same things that we spoke about, the anti-trans, the anti-queer, and you see a lot of the anti-black, right? The anti-poor, it's a lot of anti. I'm not really sure where the love and the empathy and the appreciation and the kindness come in, but I would love to take a look right now at Christian nationalism. First, I want to define it. I'm going to define it based on what the internet says, and then I would love to hear what you have to say about it so we could talk a little bit more about it, because I think it underscores a lot of what we're going to be talking about. So, Christian nationalism is a political ideology that seeks to fuse Christian and national identities. Advocates believe the United States was founded as a Christian nation, because Christians found it, y'all, just in case you didn't know that, and that its laws and government should be based on Christian values. So fuck what you heard about that whole separation of church and state. That is not Christian nationalism. But how do you see it? How would you define it?
What you just said.
Okay.
Right. Absolutely. It is this marriage between what some consider patriotism and Christianity.
Yeah.
That, to be an American is to be a Christian. And when you expand on that, Christian nationalism is just the latest iteration of white supremacy. So it's specifically white Christian nationalism. And I'm not saying that to leave black people out of it, because you have a lot of white Christian nationalists in blackface who are practicing the same behaviors and hold the same ideologies. Because some people think, you can't be a white supremacist if you black. White supremacy starts with a belief.
Absolutely.
If you believe that white is right and superior, that is white supremacy, and you are a white supremacist. And I know a
That's
lot
all
of
it
black
takes.
white supremacists.
Absolutely. 100%. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that too, because a lot of people would like to believe that just because you're painted black, and me too, I'm ashamed in that I've given a lot of black folks the benefit of the doubt, which I always, I love black people. I'm very, very passionate about our community, but then we also romanticize a little too fucking much.
Yeah.
And in understanding that, especially from the pulpit, there's a lot to lose, right? Like you have to think about your tax liabilities. You're thinking about like, you know, being kind of looked at as an enemy of this white supremacist but Christian nationalist state, if you will.
Right.
So a lot of people fit in there. So I thank you for that clarification, and that black people can perpetuate that as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, it goes back to the concept of the plantation preacher. Like, I look at our history in this country, like from beginning to where we are now.
Yeah.
And of course, our history does not start with the plantation.
Right.
I want to be very clear about that, because a lot of people start our history on the plantation, and then we leave out all of the history that we had prior to the plantation, which is why African spirituality gets such a bad rap.
Facts.
Right? Because some people think we didn't have anything until our oppressors imposed Christianity on us.
Absolutely.
But the plantation preacher, going all the way back, just using an example, Nat Turner. Nat Turner was basically deputized by the plantation owners, by the enslavers, to preach a colonized gospel message to the enslaved that their role in life was to obey their master and work hard so that they could receive their reward in heaven. That is a tradition that spans hundreds of years at this point.
Yeah.
All right. So when we look at it in history, people can see it very clearly. Like, oh yeah, you know, they told them, you know, heaven, you know, you'll get heaven if you just obey your slave master here. But people struggle to bring that history into a current context.
Yes.
Like, the strategy didn't change. And I try to leave room for modern day plantation preachers to shift their perspective, because that's how we got the story of Nat Turner. He shifted his perspective. He started to look at the Bible differently. So before, when he was looking at the Bible, he saw slaves obey your masters. Then he started looking at the Bible, looking for freedom.
Yes.
And he found Exodus.
Yes.
And he saw where God led people out of bondage, out of slavery. And that led him to be the freedom fighter that he became.
Yeah.
So there's always room for people to come out of the sunken place. I try to leave room for that. I'm also not holding my breath.
Yeah.
Because Nat Turner was an exception. That's why we know his story.
Yeah.
If there were a million Nat Turners, it probably wouldn't be as exceptional.
It's true.
Right. But the plantation preacher tradition is long, and there's always somebody for sale. I don't care what the group is. So when you talk about black people, there's always somebody for sale. You talk about black preachers, there's always somebody for sale.
Absolutely.
So a lot of what I'm gonna tell you what Christian nationalism looks like in a black church. I'm a Christian before I'm black. That is how Christian nationalism manifests itself in the black church, where we lift up Christian profession over black identity, as if that's going to help us in the real world.
Yeah.
Because being a Christian has not shielded us or made us immune from any of the oppression and brutality that we have experienced as a people. So what that does is it conditions us to identify with Christianity over our blackness. Then when people come oppressing us in the name of Christianity, it's like, well, I mean, but I'm Christian before I'm black. So, and this is just a bunch of confusion.
Yeah.
You know, so we really have to start to examine this. We have to examine why any of us will want to practice a religion that requires us to abandon our blackness.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
because that's the work of the enemy at the end of the day.
I mean, my God, like it's, first of all, extremely well said. And I definitely agree with that, because when I sit back and I look at what's happening right now, and 5 alarm fire, like the shit that's going on right now is beyond crazy. And I'm going to bring in Charlie Kirk right now, because Charlie Kirk, because they see it. They see what's going on with us. Because, he got together with Candace Owens and did Blexit. And Blexit, like this shit. To even articulate this right now, I'm getting on my own nerves having to talk about it.
I understand.
But this white man saw that there exist these black folks. Now, these people would be so fast to say, what y'all need a BET for? But they sure as hell created a Blexit for our black asses, though, didn't they? To make sure that when they're talking directly to us, they can talk directly to us. And let's make sure that we get this white woman, this black woman,
Right,
to be the leader of this. And when I look at that, it tells me something. It tells me that they know that we, in fact, are different, that we, in fact, do need to be spoken to, catered to. We have special situations going on, and that there's an opportunity to impact our spaces as black folks with whatever it is their ideology is, an offshoot, if you will, just dipped in a little bit of black. But more so than anything, this Blexit, right? Meaning that you guys are different than the rest of your community. You guys don't have to believe what the rest of your community believes. You can separate yourselves. You can completely be conservative. You can love God the way that we love God. You can definitely call out black on black violence and all of the things that we're talking about over here as well. They know that we are, in fact, in a vulnerable place. And they created an institution to be able to take and, well, I would say to divide our community, to be able to catch the ears of those folks. People, when Charlie Kirk was assassinated, I have my own theories about that. We don't necessarily have to divulge into that. I'm more so focusing on the impact of a Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA and how that feeds into this white Christian nationalism versus kind of like how, and we will get into it, sort of like the black response to this, the black church's response to this. Because when I think about a Charlie Kirk, I see someone who is adversarial, right? I see someone who has actually gone out of their way, spending the last 12 years after being gifted millions of dollars from an older white man, to create a pipeline for youth to indoctrinate them into a radicalized version of Christianity that prioritizes whiteness, that prioritizes heterosexuality, that prioritizes wealth and capitalism, which is literally in their literature for their organization, versus the black church, where there's a church pretty much on every corner if you go to certain parts of Brooklyn right now, and everybody's poor as fuck. And so I see these things as juxtaposed, but they're just so closely related. And the Charlie Kirkness, the violence of that, met up with a lot of these black Christians and white Christians alike who are sort of like defending Charlie Kirk, right? But then you have a lot of black people in the space who are just hurting and in pain, are just like, we don't want to hear this shit, and we don't have to celebrate. As a black pastor, someone who is already known for letting people know exactly how it is that you feel, did you find it difficult to call it like you see it as it pertains to Charlie Kirk? And then also met with this pull on the black side that's like, no, Charlie was a man of God. How did you wrestle with that? Did you find it confusing or something where you had to like consider your words before you spoke?
That's a great question. I always consider my words before I speak.
Okay.
But not so much because of the pushback I'll get from the culture, whether it be like black people, white people, or anybody else. I consider my words and I consider everything that I do because I know they put me in danger.
Yes.
It's not lost on me that there are people who are committed to making sure my message never reaches the masses.
Yeah.
So I'm always being mindful of that, because you talked about empathy earlier and how important it is for us to develop empathy. Well, Christian nationalists have written books and are going around the country telling people that empathy is a bad thing. That was one of Charlie Kirk's statements. That no, we shouldn't empathize with people because, then it gives way to their sin and so many other things that they go into that I won't even divulge in right now because it'll take me way down a rabbit hole.
Right.
So the new communication strategy for Democrats, now that their polling advantage is collapsing in every single state, is not to do what Bill Clinton used to do, where he would say, I feel your pain. Instead, it is to say, you're actually not in pain. Bill Clinton in the 1990s, it was all about empathy and sympathy. I can't stand the word empathy, actually. I think empathy is a made-up New Age term that it does a lot of damage, but it is very effective when it comes to politics. Sympathy I prefer more than empathy. That's a separate topic for a different time.
When it came down to Charlie Kirk, the funny thing is I was on sabbatical when he was murdered. Yeah. I was actually on vacation and I saw it, and I was committed to not making any content, but I still had a bunch of thoughts. So I was just like sharing thoughts on Facebook and Threads. And I might throw a couple on Instagram, you know, but I wasn't making any videos about it. What really pained me is how many people weren't paying attention. That's what pained me about the moment. That when he was murdered, there were people who came out of the woodworks like, oh, I like Charlie Kirk. And I'm like, nigga, how?
How?
Right?
Please show your work.
Yeah, like when, where, and how.
Yeah.
And then you had a lot of people who were like, oh, I never even heard of him. And you know, that stings a little bit too, because I've been out here like a voice in the wilderness talking about this type of stuff. Like I've been making content and doing podcast episodes and preaching about the dangers of Christian nationalism for the past, at least the past couple of years. And there just were a lot of people who didn't know. So I knew I was gonna get some pushback for saying it, but that comes with the territory.
Absolutely.
Like if you operate in a liberation space and liberation is your goal, that means you are going to afflict oppressors. And you are going to afflict people who are comfortable in their oppression. Not all the slaves wanted to get off the plantation.
That part.
Because the plantation felt safer because it was familiar.
Yeah.
And what's happened, I believe, in our current climate is that we've normalized anti-Blackness to the extent that we don't recognize it when we see it. Because see, prior to the civil rights movement, it was politically correct to be anti-Black. You know, I forget which one of, I think it was one of Nixon's advisors who said, you know, prior to 65, you could say nigga, 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 no problem. Then the Civil Rights Act happened, and now you can't say nigga, nigga, nigga no more. So now you gotta find coded ways to hide your anti-Blackness under stuff like states' rights, and forced busing, and immigration, and abortion, and all of these things that Christian nationalists have lifted up as wedge issues so that they don't have to say, we don't like the niggas.
Exactly.
But Trump ushered in a new era of anti-Blackness where he does and says so much ridiculous stuff that it's hard to keep up with. It starts to normalize it.
Absolutely.
So then you get Charlie Kirk out here with his platform, with all the money that he has.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like, looking at his body of work, like he done said some of the worst stuff about Black people, particularly Black women.
He hates Black women.
Yeah.
What? My God.
Yeah.
Who broke his heart?
Exactly.
Who broke your heart, bro? Anyway.
Yeah.
If we would have said 3 weeks ago, Blake, if we would have said that Joy Reid and Michelle Obama and Sheila Jackson Lee and Ketanji Brown Jackson were affirmative action picks, we would have been called the racist. But now they're coming out and they're saying it for us. They're coming out and they're saying, I'm only here because of affirmative action. Yeah, we know. You do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously. You had to go steal a white person's slot to go be taken somewhat seriously.
And then, you know, people are like, oh, you're taking his words out of context. And listen,
stop it.
One of the creators I follow, I can't remember his name right now. I can see his face, but I can't remember his name. He had a great video about it. He said, you know, for everybody that says you're taking this out of context, in order for something to be taken out of context, that means the meaning of the statement would have to change when you add the context.
Mm-hmm.
So if I put out a quote and I say it means one thing, but then when you add context, it means something else, that's taking it out of context.
Absolutely.
But if when I add the context to the statement, it doesn't change the meaning of the statement, I didn't take it out of context. I just isolated it.
Exactly.
That's it. I just isolated it.
Exactly.
And again, just like with the Bible, people are getting from Charlie Kirk what they're looking for. So if you want Charlie Kirk to be a great guy, you will interpret what he's saying to be something not so bad. Well, I mean, yeah, he did call out 4 Black women specifically and say that they needed affirmative action to compete with white people. He did say that,
Yes.
but he wasn't really talking about all Black people, just those 4 who needed affirmative action. It's like, if that's the takeaway that you got from that, I can't argue with you. I'm not even gonna try to argue with you because you already lost in the sauce.
Absolutely.
And you're not interested in getting out of it.
Absolutely.
So it's like those types of statements and thoughts and views have become normalized in the wake of Trump, in the Trump era. All of that stuff has become normalized. And the more normalized something becomes, the more difficult it is to speak out against it.
Absolutely.
Because now you ruffle more feathers because it's more normalized.
Absolutely.
So what we need right now from us as a people is a whole lot of courage.
Absolutely.
Because we got to push back against the norms like our ancestors did to get us to a place where open, blatant racism was no longer accepted in the public sphere. But right now we're back at it, except for they're doing it with different messaging. They're not just saying, I don't like Black people anymore. They're using coded language and dog whistles to say the same message.
Absolutely. The woke left over there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. What do they call Jasmine Crockett a ghetto Black bitch?
Yeah.
To your point, it's getting worse and worse every day. And the N-word, a lot of average everyday white folks are calling people the N-word left and right.
Yeah.
And you see an increase in that because, to what you said, this pattern that we're seeing, that we're emerging, is by way of a Donald Trump. When Europeans were going on their crusades, Manifest Destiny, taking over places, they were murdering, stealing people's children with the help of the Catholic Church.
Absolutely.
And so
financed by the
Catholic Church from the people. And we see this happening again today. And I think we have to be very bold in the way that you were talking about this, fearless in calling this out. The church has a very, very special place and a very specific role that it plays in what we are seeing as in the rise of authoritarianism. The ways in which you have pastors using their bully pulpits